Hello everyone and welcome to this final panel session at the first of the ACT Middle East Treasury Summit 2020. We're having a very exciting panel for you for the last panel session of today, where we will be looking at the changing payment landscape, the global themes and emerging regional payment systems. We're having a very exciting panel for you. We have David Sinkins, who's Global Head Cash Management Sales at Barclays in London. Then we have Mariusz Mlodowski, who's Planning and Administration Director at Cemex Group here in the UAE. And finally, we have Mehdi Mana, who's the CEO at Buna, which is the Arab Regional Payment System. I'm very delighted that we have been able to collect such a very diverse and experienced panel for this discussion. Before we kick off, we have some housekeeping rules as usual. This is a live session, so we would really like it if you could ask questions to the panel. To the right of your screen, you will see a Q&A box. Please pop your question in there, and if we have time, we will try to post those to the panelists as we go along. It's a live session, but it is recorded and will be made available for everyone to view, I think, for another 30 days after the end of the summit on the same platform that you are viewing it now. With that out of the way, let's go right back into the theme of this session. It's really about the regional payment landscape. I have seen significant innovation in the payments-scape globally as well as on a regional basis. In the GCC, you could see a real-time gross settlement system, which is about to be rolled out. They are working on that at the moment. David, as an international bank with a wide experience in international payments, of course, what are some of the global trends that you see currently when it comes to payments?
Thank you, Chris, and hello to everybody. I think, first of all, really, the first thing you just touched on just a moment ago, what are organisations and central banks considering for our clients and also for market infrastructure? The most important thing is real time. So if you think about it, real time payments is critical, really, for the development of the underlying client experience. We're seeing that happen across, clearly in the US, across in Europe, particularly with the rollout of the SEPA system. Again, as you said, in the GCC, which we'll come on to later. And it also follows a broader trend that we've seen out in clearly Australia and particularly in the UK. The second point I would also talk about is that rise of digital innovation and automation, particularly prevalent now. So when you think about the rise of technology and around API build out, it's really about the client experience. And what do we mean by client experience? We mean about treasurers, how they engage with banks, how they engage with their underlying ERP platforms. But ultimately, it's also about the underlying client experience of their own organisations. So how do they deliver a better and enhanced customer experience, which they work with their business stakeholders on? So quite a lot of trends we're seeing in payments at the moment. But I see the core principles always still remain resiliency, real-time visibility, and the ability to continue to innovate. But I'll stop there and move on for you.
Okay, thanks, David. Mariusz, that was from the bank's perspective, from a corporate point of view, and at the Cemex. How do you feel if you look over the last couple of years? How have payments evolved from a corporate treasury perspective?
Yes. I will be. Hello, everyone. I will be speaking about my experience here in the Emirates. So, I must say that the construction industry in the Emirates that we are working with is still quite challenging from the corporate treasury perspective. In the UAE and among our clients, checks is one of the most common methods to execute payments. So as per the statistics from the central bank, the number of presented checks in UAE equal to around 28 million with the value of 1.4, 1.5 billion dirhams, which is quite a substantial amount. And however, in the Emirates, what we can see right now is the increasing role of the bank transfer, where according to around 2018, 2019 statistics, it reached around 66% process payment from that source to 50 from about 50% in 2012. So while checks transactions are decreased from 46% to 31%. So actually, we can see similar trends among our customers, where the bank transfer and the letter of credit are increasing at the expense of the cash and the check. And finally, we see also more and more SMEs actually are more willing to pay by credit or debit the product instead of cash or checks. So let's say, in my opinion, cash is set to take a tumble from its long-held position as the most preferred mode of payment in the UAE, with digital payments witnessing a steady surge in popularity among the clients. So I think that's why the country and the Middle East has the still great, growth potential from the payment perspective to be more digital, agile, and user-friendly.
Yeah, so really the common themes that we see a lot on the ACT Treasury conferences, digitalization and paperless payments, really coming to the front now as well in the UAE. Mehdi, we are delighted to have somebody with your experience and background on this panel as well. Prior to joining Abuma, you were actually at the ECB for about 12 years, I believe, looking at payment infrastructures. What would be some of the key objectives as you see it when to come to the introduction of new payment systems?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I think I would repeat some of what David said, because there are a number of payment system initiatives that are going on around the globe. And we observe common trends across them. So there are new systems, there are enhancement of existing systems, and what we see that there are more or less three main areas of attention. The first one is the speed, and it's not just about real time, and it's the keyword is instant. It's instant payment that is being developed here and there. The second important theme is safety. And here it connects more to cyber resilience and cyber threat in the current days. And the final one is about cross-border, and it's about integration. And when we observe what is being developed by the ECB, so you see all these themes being covered. Instant payment being covered by TIPS. They are now undergoing a major modernization of the RTGS system, with in particular enhancement of the cyber resilience there. And this modernization contains certain features connected to cross-border payment as well. We observe the same in the UK. The UK program regarding cyber resilience is very developed and very enhanced. So a lot of efforts are being deployed now by Bank of England and commercial banks in the UK to enhance the cyber resilience level around payment. Moving to the US, we observe more or less the same. So with instant payment being covered by FedNow initiative, certain enhancement and investment in cyber resilience, and the same if we continue moving around the globe with Bank of Japan also modernizing its system and launching a number of initiatives around cross-border payment. With Buna, not to forget Buna, we are doing the same, and actually we are covering all these three teams together. We started from the cross-border, but we are certainly very cautious with the cyber resilience of what we are offering, and finally, in terms of speed and instant payment, this is also part of our roadmap for the upcoming months. So we are proud of being aligned with these major trends that you observe here and there around the globe.
Mm-hmm. So it's really, to summarize it, when we see around the globe, we're really looking at speed and we look at security. Data, cybersecurity as a way. And it's very interesting that it's happening across the globe almost at the same time. Of course, some regions are behind, some regions are following a little bit later, but it's a global shift that we are seeing in the payment landscape. And this is for me, it is very impressive, because it has been quite stable for a long time. So we really see the speed of change is quite big, as I see it, which is very impressive. And it's, of course, treasurers need to be ready for this as well. They need to think about what would be the impact on their operations, on their systems and their processes. David, if I can head back to you, what would you see as some of the key consideration you would think the treasurers will need to look at or relook at when they are looking at their payment processes when we're thinking about these new innovations and evolutions of payments?
So I guess the same point, Chris. If you think about what is critical to a treasurer, is around clearly visibility, clearly of cash flow, clearly the AR, AP processes and optimization. So they're really core fundamental. Clearly alongside, as Mehdi talked about, around clear risk and control and stability, which are really important to treasurers. So what I would expect treasurers to be looking at is one, making sure their platforms are fit for purpose, so they're able to move at the same speed as what the technology is adapting to. Can they integrate those into the back end processes, so in the back end operations functions? Because ultimately the role of the treasurer, as we all know, has become far more strategic over the past 10 years. It's about making the right decisions for the board, and of course that visibility is important. The other thing I would say is when you think about the connectivity, that what treasurers should be asking clearly any of the banks or their third-party providers, how have they developed their own roadmap and what is coming from a technology standpoint to really enable a treasurer's role to be far more efficient and effective. So, for example, what I'd be very interested in underlying corporates listening to is how are they able to use GPI, for example, from SWIFT, so the ability to track and trace payments. How are they able to look at the clearance and settlement cycles and timing? These are all important considerations, aside from all of the other things that a treasurer has to do as part of their day role. So.
Great, and that ties very well in with a session we had earlier in the day when we're looking about where we were actually looking at how can a corporate make sure the processes are really fit for purpose and also ready to embrace the changes that are coming in the payment landscape. So these two sessions really fit well together. Mehdi, a little bit closer to home, we were spoken pretty much globally and on a high level. How do you see, especially in the MENA region, the payment landscape evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, I think in our region there was a clear gap compared to other one, which relates to the level of integration and of existence of efficient cross-border solution. That was a clear gap in the region because we see that Europe is pretty much integrated. In Asia, there are certain solutions that are in place. In the US, between the US, Canada, etc., there are certain good options to process payment and to do business. In the region, we still face a lot of fragmentation, and this is what we have to tackle in priority. And this, what I would expect to be the major evolution with what we are initiating currently. It's critical. It's critical. So payments in the region now are very fragmented and very slow and very difficult to control. Coming back to what David mentioned regarding the safety and of payment, not just from the technical perspective, but in terms of management of cash flows and predictability, that makes the life of a treasurer very, very complicated with the current level of fragmentation. It's very difficult to manage all these flows with all these correspondents across different countries, with different time zone, with different deadlines. That has to change, and this is the change that we are developing and we are providing now with the integration that we are delivering with solutions like Buna, where cash management could be concentrated in one single point with one single interface as well, coming also to the connectivity point in a way that is fully predictable, concentrated, integrated, and allowing full control of the cash flows and of the funds that are needed to cover the payment over a business day. This is what the treasurer should prepare for, and it's preparing for the best from my point of view. This is again a common trend. So if you see what is being developed in Europe, it's pretty much going in the same direction. Maybe there was a bit of deficit in the region that we are covering very fast with what we are doing these days.
Mhm. And with all these changes coming to the region, can you put a timeline as to when we can expect some new solutions to become available before for treasurers? Do we have some timelines already?
It's now. It's now.
It's
Buna,
now.
Buna
It's
is
already
there.
here.
Buna
It's
is there.
there.
Buna is there. So,
It is
Buna is
operational.
there. Exactly. We have the platform that is there. We are onboarding the currencies and the participant now. Well, we will be activating the first payment in the upcoming days because, again, we have I will not speak about critical mass, but a representative number of participants across the different countries. And we are continuing also the onboarding of the major currencies. We have Emirati Dirham operation on the platform. Egyptian pound is for the upcoming days. We continue with Saudi Riyal, Jordanian dinar, the euro and the dollar as well. All of these before the end of the year. We are still on track for that. And the system is there, absolutely. So it's treasurer should motivate all their business lines to use it to make their life much easier than what it is today.
Fantastic. This is all very exciting. And I think if the treasurers out there, they really should start thinking about how can we use this and how can we streamline operations with this. Marius, your operations currently with Cemex Group is mainly UAE focused. How do you see that treasurers can avail of these new innovations? And I think a little bit outside your group as well, but as a treasurer, how it could work for a regional treasurer and how it could solve some of the key challenges that you currently face.
Yeah. I mean, in my company, we are constantly working on innovation, so to be more competitive, customer oriented, and so on. So the innovations come not only from our products and services, but also from the corporate treasury perspective, like you just mentioned. So, for instance, we recently developed the industry first, the digital platform for purchasing products and tracking deliveries and managing orders seamlessly. It's called Cemex Go. And one of the key features that already is working in some countries is this platform that has the payment gateways. So where the customer can select the payment options, call for a payment gateway, and will be diverted for an online payment screen where they can pay using debit or credit card. So then the amount will be debited from the customer card and credited to our account, and everything will be automatically recorded in SAP system or any kind of system you can use, and of course appears in the platform that we are promoting for now. So actually, one of the main challenges that we face in the market practice right now here in the UAE and the Middle East, I call it like old school. That I would say that is more related to the past habits where the people like to have everything in paper. Okay, and consider bank transfer and all digital solutions as a very expensive, okay, and something that is probably last in their list, okay. The second observation that I have that is actually that the customers still tend to pay checks, okay, especially post-dated checks, where in some cases at the maturity date there are not sufficient funds to clear, and now all the burden and the collection effort starts to be more complicated. Because either the customer will pay you, or you need to start file the police case and follow the collections. So in order to streamline all these processes, for instance, we are using for the CDCs and PDCs, we are using check deposit machines, that also to make bulk check deposits, but also allow deposited checks to be available for the first clearing. I think it is a very, very powerful facility that it is available right now in the market. Because however, we still see some bounce checks happening. I have read that in the UAE market, about 5% of all checks bounce, which is kind of substantial amount. So also on the other hand, we do promote the letter of credit as a mode of payment and securitization as well, because the LC is basically a letter from a bank, guaranteeing that the buyer's payment to a seller will be received on a time and for the correct amount. However, there are two challenges, related to that facility. First is the size of the facility provided by the banks to our customers. That it depends on their financials and the available limits. The second is the speed of the process, because it sometimes takes from 3 days to 14 days for documents exchange and securing all necessary approvals from customers, involved banks, including Swift message confirmation and so on. So I think it's a very time-consuming process, and all this, digitalization and innovation that also is related to this, letter of credit facility will be, gladly welcomed by us, by the treasurers, and also by the customers. No, but however, we are happy that the situation, the market is changing, so the customers are choosing, for instance, this mode of payments, more, let's say, rapidly than was in the past. No, that the old school is pretty much fading away, hopefully.
Hopefully, we're not there yet, but we're moving in the right direction. Definitely.
Correct.
David, we're not, especially when you're setting up new payment solutions, there's a lot of different market participants that are involved. How important is collaboration between all the market participants in order to make sure that evolution is happening smoothly and everybody is on board?
I think, Chris, as you can see from this, it's ultimately critical. When you think about new market participation, having a clear vision or a state of where we're heading towards, whether it is the government, the central governments, the regulators, the banks, the underlying corporates that are going to use the systems, the institutions that are clearly clearing, and of course, when you think about how you define and describe what that end vision looks like, it's really trying to get all of those participants to buy in so they can help their own organisations to all pull together to establish a common roadmap or a common set of end objectives and outcomes. As you can see, that's what has successfully happened around the world in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases, what you'll see is each of the different participants are trying to ultimately solve the problem that they're talking about. So to Marish's point, the use of checks is a good example. So we've seen this actually in, like we said, we've seen this in Dubai, in the Middle East. We saw this in the UK with introduction of real-time check clearance. So effectively, making electronic a paper form of payment. But I think when you talk about the actual infrastructure itself, we mustn't underestimate clearly how much work goes into bringing all those participants together, because there are core considerations, and you have to make sure you listen to each of the participants, what their concerns are, and then make sure they're being addressed to get real-time userability. Because ultimately, what you care about is adoption. You care about adoption for the banks invest in the technology to connect to the payment systems. You care about security, from a regulator's perspective. How do you manage KYC screening, money laundering? How do we make sure we've got all the right controls in place? And then from the clients, the people who are actually using the system, actually that they see benefits of adopting the system versus what they used to use. So it's quite I can just summarize, critical in getting that stakeholder plan built out in the right way. But I'm sure Marish and Mehdi is both, we're all stakeholders between three of us with different perspectives, but we'd all say the same thing.
Indeed, if I may, Chris, if you allow me elaborating a bit further on that, because the question of collaboration is key and it's not new. This is due to the fact that payment is an industry of network. So without the network, you have nothing. You don't have payment solution. And in order to get the network, you need to collaborate to build it and to achieve it. So this is not new. There are nevertheless new trends because now collaboration is going beyond the usual sector, I would say. And the key point mentioned by David is the collaboration between private and public sector. This is crucial in the current context because the problems that we are trying to resolve are complex. It's not about just the business, it's not just about the technology, but it's about the combination of both and about the regulation on the top of the two. And this is why the collaboration between the different business lines, again, considering the technology, the business, and the collaboration between the private entities and the public sector is actually also a common trend that you observe around the globe for all what is being delivered these days. So all these solutions that are aiming at providing innovative payment options, at building bridges and offering cross-border solutions are heavily dependent and relying on collaboration between private and public sector. This is very, very important in this context.
Mm-hmm. And if we expand a little bit on that, especially when you talk about a regional solution, you talk about government bodies, different regulators in between the different regions, between countries. How how important was it that a updated and more efficient cross-border payment system could actually support intra-regional trades, a cooperation and benefit trade within the region, or in this case within GCC, or a little bit wider within the whole MENA region? Mehdi?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, indeed, this is what we are bringing. This is precisely what we are bringing, this collaboration between the relevant stakeholders. I mean, so some of my colleagues, we have a debate on what we should publish and share regarding our technical solution or not. I'm personally in favor of full publicity of all what we implement and the last technical detail, because there is no risk that we are copied. What we are delivering is not an enhanced technical solution. What we are delivering is the ability of gathering the right people around the right table at the right moment. And this is very difficult to copy or to replicate. So this is why very often, I mean, the public authority are needed in this context. And when it comes to cross-border solution, having a supranational organization is key. So this is why in Europe things are moving fast, because there is a governance and there are supranational organizations like the ECB and the Commission and others that can drive these type of changes. Here in the region, we have the Arab Monetary Fund, so it's a supranational organization that can drive this type of changes, and this is why we managed to move and to develop these solutions. What we can bring, it's obvious. I mean, it's the way. The influence that could expected from this solution on the economy and enhancing trades and exchanges. When you look today at the speed at which goods are moving from one country to another in the region, so we are speaking about goods, physical goods moving from one country to another, sometimes much faster than electronic payment between the two same countries. So it's there is something obviously wrong there that needs to be fixed, because instead of having the payment as a facilitator and enabler for more business, the payment options that exist now are very often a barrier to more business. So this is what we are fixing with solutions like Buna, by delivering these efficient, real-time settlement of payment across the countries of the region. Payment will no longer be an obstacle. On the contrary, it will play its role of being a facilitator and enabler for more business between these different countries, and also to connect the region in a better way to the rest of the globe. This is also a key dimension. It's not just about being closed internally, but it's having this integration and decentralization among the Arab countries will definitely also facilitate better integration and better interaction with the rest of the globe as well.
Of course, because the regional payment system will be linked with the other regional systems, and therefore we're getting very close to this global payment network. Before we dive into that a little bit further, yes, David, please.
I was going to say one other point actually, and it links both interests to what Marish and Mehdi were saying. This global trend, or this rise of the marketplace where you're connecting buyers and sellers together, I think is really important. And obviously there are a number of organisations that are doing that particularly well at the moment. So the world, as we know, is becoming a much smaller place, because ultimately people are wanting to connect, whether it is a buyer in the US to a seller in China, effectively that ability. But you've got to make sure, one, you've got transparency, you've got to have the consideration on how you settle as quickly as you can do. And then the other point that Marish raised, this point around bringing payment gateways together, just make the experience as easy as it possibly is and as seamless as it is for the underlying consumer. Whilst at the same time manage all the risk in the background. You've got a clearly foreign exchange risk there, you've got clearly settlement risk, you've got quality of goods risk coming through. So for me, it's all exceptionally exciting. And I think that the one call out I'd make is for treasurers, and obviously clearly Marish being as part of CEMEX, is sitting back thinking about having that horizon scan. The technology will continue to evolve, the payment systems will come together, but they'll continue to evolve. They won't stay static. So just keep your eyes open, I think I would say. But sorry, Chris, back to you.
That's okay. No, I think that's a really interesting point you make. All the international systems are coming together. And I think it's really interesting that on top of that, we have now a Swift GPI solution, which means that the information of where the payment is between these different payment mechanisms, it's much more visible. Yeah, and that's the clarity that is there now as well for the treasurer. Coming a little bit more back to the corporate view, Marius, of course, we're all living, and it's coming back in every session, we're living in unprecedented times with the pandemic. And have you seen, or has the pandemic resulted or impacted your journey towards more electronic digital payments within CEMEX?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, recently a friend shared a funny picture meme with me. The title of the picture was "Who led your digital transformation?" And under the title, there were three options: A, CEO; B, CIO; and C, COVID-19. And answer C was circled. And this is somehow true to a certain point, no? So major global crises are one of the most powerful catalysts for transformation, and COVID-19 is no exception. So, many companies are forced to become digital these days, just to have better chance of surviving the crisis. No? So, from our perspective, very quickly after the start of the pandemic, we have learned, that for instance, personal interactions with our customers need to be reduced to the minimum. That paper, including cash and checks, is not safe anymore, because it may contain virus. This is what we learn, up to some certain extent. And we also learned that on customer side, there are people not present physically at the office, because they work from home, like all we do, that's in a remotely way, and cannot physically sign checks, cannot order the payments, etc. They miss tokens, whatever. Okay, so the only way to keep business running, to accelerate our digital journey, promoting the bank transfer, credit, debit card payments, and move actually most of our interactions with the customers to the virtual world. So, what we also did, in a very recent time, we heavily promoted our electronic invoices solutions. Like in 2 months' time, 1/3 of our customers decided to go paperless, which is quite good result in a short time of a period. And we also see that our B2C customers, are more likely to pay by credit card instead of cash or check. And actually, we support that process. Because we bring to our sales teams the so-called portable payment terminals that we are using, that is just to facilitate the payments. So all in all, I'm very impressed how our employees and the customers have adapted to the new reality. And actually, to be frank with you, the pandemic is helping us out with this digitalization effort.
That is, yeah, and I think we've seen that in many treasury organizations. It really was a catalyst, and in a way, it has been very helpful. If it was helpful in any way for a treasurer is always willing to go this route, but it was convincing internal and external stakeholders, including customers, to actually take the digital plunge. And I think this was, as you said, who led your digital journey. I think that the COVID-19, I think it's definitely the correct answer. We have time for a couple of questions from the audience. If you do have a question, go to your the Q&A box on the right-hand side. This is your right-hand side of your panel that you will see, and please type in your questions there. We actually have one question so far came to us to pose to the panel. Are there any thoughts on moving away from payment cutoffs and being able to make payments 24/7? David, can I start with you? Sounds like a good one for you.
Sure. Look, I could see a world, a visionary state where we possibly could get to that. I'm not sure what time horizon we'd be able to get there, but of course, the one question you have to think about every day, and this is the important point, not just for commercial banks, but it will be for central banks, is obviously clearly managing liquidity, and managing clearly the exposure and the settlement exposure at there's different points of the day. Of course, settlement times are driven very much, whether it's by currency or, of course, by the correspondent banking network. So what I'd love to see is a visionary state, of course, at some point where we do have 24/7 connectivity. I think we're a long way from that at the moment, being quite honest, but we're definitely moving towards it. If you think about it, settlement cutoff times coming later, underlying client needs are driving the change. So if you think about it, particularly for some of the new business models that have come about, clients that expect real-time, instantaneous settlement and capability, and their businesses don't stop when the clearing cut-off times take place. You clearly have concerns, as Marish mentioned earlier, daylight overdraft limits, the way in which you have to manage that exposure overnight in the overnight positions. So yes, I'd love to see it. Not quite there yet, but I'd be interested in Mehdi's view on that though as well.
Yes, Mehdi, from a payment infrastructure.
We are, to some extent, we are there. So it depends from what angle we are asking the question. For payment 24/7, whenever we refer to instant payment, is there. So all the instant payment solutions are there 24/7. This is different from 24/7 treasury management, fortunately for the treasurer, because that would make it more complicated, especially over the weekend, because there are certain arrangements regarding the value days that are today protecting the treasurer. And also because, as rightly said by David, central banks are still not offering monetary policy operation 24/7. So this is what is not for now, and probably it will take some time. But making payment available to corporate and general public 24/7, it's definitely a must, and it's to a large extent it's already there.
Marius, are you afraid of working in the office 24/7, or you think it will be very beneficial as a treasurer?
Actually, we are working 24/7, to some extent, because we are, constantly, connected to our system. So, I mean, we receive messages, we receive emails, and we also, can arrange payment. But I think it's very true that from the treasury perspective, what we do miss is a 24/7 solution, because very often the clearance is very time consuming. Okay, so we do wait for the clearance, and the customers are saying that okay, they paid, but we don't see it. Okay, the cross-border transfers are also an issue in this region. So I think there is a way to go. I mean, to improve the situation. This is what we have in other continents, for instance.
Okay.
Marius, cross-border settlement in the region are not a problem anymore with Buna, so that you have to change your
One barrier resolved. There we go. Very good. Final question for you, David, because we have about 3 minutes left. Apart from, of course, this vision of 24/7 payments globally across border, what some of the other technologies that you see coming out that can further shape the payment landscape?
So I think let's think about it. So I think one, I talked earlier about new business models that are enabled by the use of artificial intelligence. I was thinking back to Marish not having to work 24/7, but hopefully there are clearly robotics and technology that can support the treasury systems to provide that capability, and then really push it out to a human at that point when they get really complex. I also think about the use of data and analysis and analytics. If you think about it today, what is this providing to us? A number of ways. It gives us alerting capability, technology to understand trends that we're seeing more easily. We have that today, but obviously I'd see new businesses coming about over time. And the other important point for me is how we make sure that just our businesses are far more integrated. As we touched on earlier, that's one of the impacts of COVID. It has transformed effectively in a very short space of time the way in which people work and operate, and also view technology. So I think that cultural shift we've gone through even in the last 9 months is going to enable far more different ways in which technology can be used and applied in our businesses. But that's the exciting thing about payments. Payments is very innovative. It's cutting edge in a lot of cases, and it's leading to the rise of new experiences. But let me stop there, Chris. I get very excited about payments, as you can tell.
That's good. It's a very exciting subject. Payments has always been a very exciting area, and as we have seen in this panel discussion, we are actually in the middle of a very exciting time. We've seen globally payment structures being developed, regional solutions, and as Maddie has said, we now have them in the GCC as well, which is probably one of the biggest takeaways here. They've been working very hard. Collaboration between the various parties within the payment network within the region to really accelerate this, and as a result this can actually give a lot of benefit to treasurers, and this is probably the big takeaway is talk to your bank and really see how can you in your treasury take advantage of these new developments in the payments gateway and the payments infrastructure within the region. With that, I would like to thank David, Marius, and Maddie for their very valuable contribution. Thank you very much for Barclays for arranging this session very much. This was the last panel discussion of today, but please hang around. After this, we have the ACT Middle East Treasury Awards, and we're all very to find out who has won. Please keep talking to your fellow treasurers on the system. Keep talking on social media with hashtag ACT Middle East, and please also complete the survey that you will find on the right-hand side next to the Q&A box. With that, that's all from us. Once again, thanks to our fantastic panelists, and we definitely hope to see you later at the awards and tomorrow at day 2 of the ACT Middle East Treasury Summit. Thank you. Have a good evening.